The Central Unified School District Board of Trustees meeting for September 14th, 2021 is called to order at 6 p.m. First order of business is attendance. Please let the record reflect that all board members are in attendance except for Trustee Paul. The next item is adoption of the agenda. What are the wishes of the board on this item? I have a motion by Trustee Cervantes. I have a second by Trustee Chan. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 6-0. Now we will take any comments from the public related to our closed session items. The number to dial if you wish to provide a comment related to the agendized closed session items is 559-276-3150. Any member wishing to address the board will have 2 minutes to address the board. Once again, if you wish to provide a comment related to the closed session items, you will have 2 minutes to address the board, and the number to dial is 559-276-3150. If we can allow 30 seconds to pass before we move on to our closed session.
"30 seconds have passed, and we have no comments by phone at this time."
Thank you. Hearing no comments from the public related to our closed session items, we will now adjourn to closed session and return at 7 p.m. or as soon as thereafter. Thank you. The board reconvenes to open session at 7:09. Please let the record reflect that trustee Paul joined our meeting at 6:02. Items to report from our closed session. The certificated personnel report was approved unanimously by a motion by trustee Cervantes and a second by trustee Brooks. The classified personnel also had unanimous support, a motion by trustee Paul and a second by trustee Chan. And with that, we will move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. If I can please have Vice President Solis lead us.
Please stand and face the flag. Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We move on to our presentations. Our first item, school activities presentation. We have ASB President Perrin Haynes.
Good evening, esteemed board members, Acting Superintendent Davis, and Central Community. My name is Perrin Haynes, and I'm the Associated Student Body President of Justin Garza High School. I would like to share with you some very exciting milestones that we have had at Justin Garza High School so far this year. On August 11th, we had our first ever Week of Welcome rally at Collegian Stadium. The students and staff were excited to be back on campus and involved in activities. Students have also been eager to start clubs here at Justin Garza High School. We have inaugural club day tomorrow, which features clubs such as Campus Life, eSports, Best Buddies, and Interact. Our campus mall has served as a great space for our lunchtime games. Students and staff have enjoyed friendly battles of Jenga, Connect 4, Cornhole, and Spikeball every week. This upcoming Monday, September 20th, we kick off our Fall Fest week. Since we have a few years until our first official homecoming, we are going to hold a Fall Fest royalty court, which consists of freshman and sophomore princess and prince. We will be announcing the winners of the Fall Fest royalty court at next week's home game on Thursday, September 23rd during halftime. I would like to formally invite the Central Community to attend this very special event. It has been great getting to know our teachers, administrators, staff, and academic counselors. Our leadership students are working hard to spread the news about our STAND principles so everyone understands what it means to be a guardian and to stand for more. We are preparing for a great school year in our new home at Justin Garza High School. Thank you for your time and have a great evening.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from our Employee Association highlights. Do we have a representative from the Central Unified Teachers Association on the line?
Yes, we have Judy Martinez, and she will be transferred shortly.
Thank you. As we wait for President Martinez to join us, just a friendly reminder, if there are any members of the public that wish to provide a public comment during our comments from the public or related to any agenda item, the number to dial is 559-276-3150.
All right, Judy, you're on with the board. Make sure to turn down your listening device so we can hear you loud and clear.
Absolutely. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, President Creel. Good evening, board members, and good evening, Superintendent. CUDA tonight wanted to report out that we are working with the district on a continued COVID-19 safety MOU and an independent study contract MOU. In addition, we also did begin regular negotiations for the 2020-21 and 2021-22 school years. Tonight, I'd like to focus on the tremendous task that all of our educators are currently working through. Due to the teacher shortages Many of our middle school and high school educators have given up their prep time to sub for their colleagues due to the nurse aide shortage of admin. All educators, all staff have been working overtime to prepare for our students. They are preparing independent study contracts already. The work that many of our students are having to do because of quarantine. Our district and site admin have also been subbing for classrooms, teachers, or other admin. But tonight I'd like to focus on our nurses, our LVNs, and our health aides. We need to acknowledge the work, the contact tracing, the regular duties that they have to do on a regular basis, on a daily basis, for our students to keep them safe, doesn't go unnoticed. And I hope that everybody is appreciating the amount of work, the overtime. The contact tracing has been tedious, to say the least. And I know that our district uses the expression, and so do we, all hands on deck, but I can truly say that that is what our district is doing. Our staff members, our secretaries, our custodians, we have to do this together, and we have been. But I'd like you to please acknowledge what every single one of our educators is doing right now. I think we all thought that coming back would be easier, and in some cases it has been, but only because our students have returned. And our educators are so happy about that. So again, thank you, board members. We ask for your continued support, because everyone right now is going above and beyond. I appreciate your time. Be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, President Martinez.
Thank you.
Next, we will have our representatives for the California School Employees Association. Thank you, President Chacon.
Good evening, everybody. Well, I'd just like to piggyback off of what Judy was saying. I think she nailed it on the head. I think we had that conversation earlier with HR about what everybody's doing, all the hard work everybody's putting in. And it's showing that we're still keeping the ball rolling, moving forward. And like I said, she nailed it pretty much for everything she said. And at this time, we have nothing else to report. Thank you.
Thank you. We move on to Superintendent and Board Communications. Acting Superintendent Davis.
Thank you. I'll reiterate as well what was just said by both Judy and Phil, in that it is incredibly amazing and wonderful to see how many people are stepping in to help in any capacity possible, and doing what is needed to make sure our schools are running and fed and arriving to campus. And so thank you for everyone doing that. A few other things I'd like to point out as well for this evening. Our director, Annette Grigsby, will share stakeholder input that is occurring currently. I look forward to updating our plan of action for addressing the learning needs of students and sharing some specific plans moving forward for use of our COVID funds. We'll fold the feedback we are receiving this week and continuing over the next 2 weeks into the plans that will come to you in October. We do encourage our community to participate in the stakeholder input sessions this week that are being held for the community members, and over the next 2 weeks, staff will also receive invitations as well. The next two are on Thursday at 9 a.m. if you want to attend a morning session, or at 6 p.m. as well. I also want to spotlight a couple of excellent points that are occurring in district, and starting with Central High School by way of our medical careers program. Mr. Holterman and Mr. Holdridge have just entered into an agreement to participate again in the Health Youth Corps. This is alongside our Department of Public Health, Calviva, Anthem Blue Cross, UCSF Fresno, and Fresno County. The Health Youth Corps engages students in components about health and how to improve our community real time. It's a real world application of what they're doing and learning, and they become leaders in our community, and we're really excited to see them begin that again this year. And also point out, I hope that you got an opportunity to see this last weekend, Miley's Ariano, our 8th grade student from Glacier Middle Point, who took time this last spring to put her thoughts into words, into poetry regarding 9/11, and she was recognized for that opportunity. And it also, I think, part of her choices she made last year to stay involved through distance learning, to join a virtual book club, to find opportunities like that to stay connected, are a great representation of the students that we have here in Central. And then lastly, good luck to our Central East junior, Paige Morales, who on September 17th will be competing for #1 title in the nation. And that's all for me.
Thank you. Any comments from the board? Hearing none, we'll move on to our next item, comments from the public. At this time, we will take any comments from the public, either virtually or in person. If you wish to provide a comment related to any item not currently on the agenda, now is the time to call. The number to dial is 559-276-3150. You will have 2 minutes to address the board. We ask you to be respectful of the time, and at the conclusion of your 2 minutes, we will end the call. Once again, if there are any members of the public that wish to address the board on any item not currently on the agenda, now is the time to call. You can dial 559-276-3150. You will have 2 minutes to address the board. We will allow 30 seconds to pass in the event that we have any delays, at which time we will move on to our consent agenda. If there are any members of the public wishing to address the board that are here physically, please make sure that you complete a comment slip or that you come forward to the podium.
"30 seconds have passed, and we have no comments by phone at this time."
Thank you. Hearing no comments from the public, under comments from the public, we will move on to consent agenda. Before I ask for a motion to approve, I just want to take a moment to thank some of our donors and highlight some of the items that are under our consent agenda. Thank you to Colonel Elvin C. Bell for his gift to Central High School. For his donation of books to the Central High School and to the library, value of $500. Also a donation of $500 from the Central Valley Community Foundation for the ASB Ag account. A donation from Kona Isa Fresno to El Capitan Middle School, and a donation to Justin Garza High School from Raw Farms USA, and a donation from Rosa Brothers. Thank you very much for your donations to our schools. I also want to highlight there is a resolution identified as number 212209 proclaiming September 15th through October 15th as National Hispanic Heritage Month. Resolution number 2122-10 proclaiming September 7th, 2021 as observance of Constitution Day. And those are all the items I'd like to highlight. If there are no items being pulled from the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. I have a motion by Trustee Solis. Is there a second? I have a second by Trustee Cervantes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Now we move on to our action items. Our first item is student discipline, case number 2122-002. What are the wishes of the board on this item? I'll move to approve. I have a second by Trustee Solis. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Our next item is approve information regarding board-appointed committee. As you may recall, during our last meeting, we had a draft of a proposed description of the committee. We took the comments that we made, the discussion that we had, and that has now been revised. So at this time, I would like to take any comments from the public related to this item. If we can allow 30 seconds after the conclusion of any comments, we will have any board discussion. And I would request, if there are no revisions proposed to the policy, that we approve as presented. Also attached is a copy of the proposed application with the requested revisions. Once again, if there is any member of the public wishing to address the board telephonically, the number to call is 559-276-3150.
Thirty seconds have passed, and there is no comment by phone at this time.
Thank you. Hearing no comment, any discussion by the board on this item? Hearing no discussion, what are the wishes of the board?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Trustee Solis. I will second that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? We took a vote, but I just realized I forgot one item to address under this policy. We need to take nominations for a board member to be appointed. I will serve as board president, but then we have 2 additional board members. One will serve on an alternate basis, but we do need to appoint a second board member. So at this time, are there any nominations?
Yes, nominate Richard Swiss.
Who would, I can't
I'm
hear you.
nominating Richard.
Okay, you're nominating Trustee Solis?
Trustee Solis.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, we will take this to a vote. So all in favor of appointing Trustee Solis as our board member on the committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. We move on to our next item, L3, approve Fresh Central Expanded Learning Programs Addendum 2021-2022. We have Area Administrator Boatwright, Dr. Boatwright.
Good evening, Acting Superintendent Davis and members of the board. 12 of our 14 elementary schools have after-school programs that are funded by the After School Education and Safety Programs, or the ACES grant. These schools qualify for grant funding based on free and reduced meal rankings. Liddell and River Bluff, though, have not qualified for this program, and so they therefore do not have expanded after-school programs currently. The original contract amount provided by FCSS and approved on June 22, 2021 to provide programs for Liddell and River Bluff was incorrect and was only for one school. This addendum increases the total contract amount to provide programs for both schools. Administration is recommending the board approve the Fresh Central Learning Programs addendum. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. If we can allow 30 seconds to pass from the presentation of an item and before we close public comment.
"30 seconds have passed, and we have no comments by phone at this time.
Thank you. Any discussion by the board? Comments or questions related to this item? If there are none, what are the wishes of the board on this item?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by trustee Cervantes. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by trustee Brooks. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Boatright. Our next item is approved growth positions for district sites. Assistant Superintendent Collegian.
Thank you, President Carrillo. Growth positions are brought to the Board of Trustees for your review. Attached for your consideration are 4 growth positions, which are warehouse worker, lead custodian, journeyman trades worker, and technician COVID-19 response. These positions were requested by administration for the improvement of district function and instructional programs, and recommended to the Human Resources based on departmental needs. Attached to this item, you will find financial information and job descriptions for the aforementioned positions. Administration is recommending this item to be approved. Happy to answer any questions the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no comments by phone at this time.
Thank you. Hearing no comments, are there any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Cervantes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Collegian, I just had a quick question in regards, will we be whole, like in the warehouse and with our HVAC team, with these employments?
Yes, I believe so. I think with the addition of the positions, the supports will be sufficient in providing those services to make sure that departments are functioning efficiently.
And is one position enough for the COVID technician regarding tracing and everything else and all the demands that are being?
I believe it is. I think right now the task is divided among several employees, having a point of contact to balance tracing, screening, vaccine record communications, and training would support district function in streamlining those services to one particular office.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Any other questions or comments? If there is nothing further, what are the wishes of the board on this item?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second? I will second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Our next and final action item is item 5, approved 2020-2021 unaudited actuals report for submission to the Fresno County Superintendent of Schools. Assistant Superintendent McLean.
Thank you, President Carrillo. So tonight we are bringing forward our unaudited actuals for approval. These are our actual results of our financial statements as of June 30th, 2021, just a few months ago. So I do have a brief presentation, and then we'll follow that up with the questions and call for the vote. Let me turn up the presentation here. So first of all, I would just like to thank our director, Yolanda Baladares, who's here tonight to answer questions with me as we're going through the discussion, and her staff. They work very hard to close the books at this time of year, the last couple of months, and I really appreciate all of their work. So this is, what we're going to see tonight is a comparison between our last financial report to the board in June, which was our estimated actuals in June, versus a couple months later as we close the books and we look at our actual results.
If I can interrupt, is there a way to clean up the screen? I don't know if it needs to be adjusted, but it's blurry.
That and there's some feedback. Thank you.
The other way? There we go. That's much better. I thought I was going to need to go to the optometrist there. So, thank you very much. So we're comparing to our last report, and you'll see the difference in the column to the right. What you're going to see tonight is mostly is a lot of change in regards to the first two columns related to our restricted funds, particularly our COVID funds, because we were recording those funds as they were awarded to us in the spring. If you remember, all the ESSER funds that came in towards the end of last school year were recorded, and obviously there wasn't a lot of time to spend those funds that came in at the end of the year. So a lot of those funds are just going to carry over, and so that's reflected in these numbers tonight. So as we get to the unaudited actuals, if you look in that column, you can see that our reserves have increased, and this is typical of school districts across the state, is that there's unspent funds this year as a result of operations not operating at full capacity when we were shut down during last year. There's just a lot of natural savings that comes into play. So our reserve balances are shown there. And this next slide, I'm going to just break down the revenue side of the financials in regards to the differences between, again, our estimated actuals and our unaudited actuals. And again, you'll see that most of that difference is in the federal revenue of what was received versus what was spent. There are some smaller adjustments to our LCFF revenue, which is basically due to a deferred maintenance spending savings this year. Some of those activities are going to be rolled over into the new fiscal year. State spending was also slightly lower, and there are some reasons that are explained there. Bottom line, our difference between revenue, and again, most of this is happening on the restricted side, is a savings of $25 million on the revenue side. So here's our chart to give you an idea of how those revenues break down, and 72% of our district's revenue is from our average daily attendance. So it's always very important that we have our students engaged in learning and being recorded for attendance to generate those revenues. On the expenditure side, we have, again, looking at the estimated actuals and unaudited actuals, again, a savings, and that's broken down between each of the major categories. We always have unfilled positions that occur during the year, and there's a natural savings built into that. We're saving on fuel, of course, because of less transportation during this past fiscal year. Services were also reduced. And again, this is looking at unrestricted and restricted expenses as well. So most of the savings, again, is on the restricted side. In terms of the breakdown, again, the majority of our expenditures are for salaries and benefits, about 78%. It's a little bit lower than normal just because of the introduction of COVID funds that were spent on things like PP&E supplies and other things that we wouldn't be spending in a non-COVID environment. This slide shows our contributions to two of the programs that the state and federal government does not fully fund for the required services that we provide to students, and that's special ed and transportation. So we did have savings in those areas, which helped the general fund as well to save money, and you can see the numbers there. We're down $1.2 million on special ed costs, and transportation, a decrease of about $500,000. This slide shows all of our other funds outside the general fund. Fund 8 is our student body fund that was just recently set up. If you recall, we had a resolution, a requirement by the state to record these in a separate fund this year, so that's a new fund number 8. And then all the other funds that we normally have below that, our facility funds, our bond funds, adult ed and child development, cafeteria. You can see we have positive balances in each one, so we are healthy in all of our different other funds. And lastly, just kind of a recap, the bottom line is that our unrestricted general fund balance, even when you put the COVID dollars aside for a moment, you'll see that they increased by $14.9 million. Some of that is a result of revenues higher than estimated, and then the other part is expenditures lower than estimated. So a combination of those two factors gives us an increase that goes into our ending restricted fund balance, which is at the end of the year is at 28% of our total general fund operating expenditures, which is over the 5% minimum that was established in board policy. So we're in a healthy position right now, and a lot of one-time dollars that have come in as a result of the savings this year and the previous year, and that will help us to maintain fiscal stability in the next couple of years. Our first interim budget will come out on December 15th. Actually, I think it's the 14th we have our board meeting. I can't remember. I think it's right around that time. We'll provide an updated multi-year projection for the board to look out over the next 2 years and show our expenses going forward. And with that, I'll pause and ask if there's any questions.
We will first allow the 30 seconds to pass to see if there's any comments from the public, and then I will entertain any questions or comments from the board. Thank you.
Thirty seconds have passed, and we have no comments by phone at this time.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board? Trustee Paul and then Trustee Solis.
Thank you, President Creel. Mr. McLean, I'm just wondering, I didn't see where the reserve was indicated in the tables in the document. Where did I miss that? I mean, I see one location. It says reserve and it says 32%. I'm not sure I'm looking in the right place.
Yes, on that first page 2, the overall reserve for
What page?
restricted and unrestricted is that 32%. Is that what you're asking?
Which page?
On page 2, right after the cover page.
Which document are you referring to? The booklet or the PowerPoint, Mr.
I
McLean?
don't see it.
I'm sorry, are you looking at the large book or the PowerPoint? Are you looking at
I
the
can't hear you.
at the presentation or at the
In the document itself.
the document
Yeah.
itself? Okay. And your question is regarding the amount or the percent of the overall reserves?
Yes.
Yeah, so the ending fund balance at the end of 2021-22 is $65 million. That's the 32%.
Can you tell us what page that's on?
Page 9, right?
Yeah.
So I see that, but that doesn't agree with the number up there unless I'm missing something on your presentation. Was $1 and 1 percentage, did I miss that?
Compared to which number? I'm sorry.
The one on your presentation about reserve, the dollar amount given for reserve,
The dollar amount?
yeah.
It should. So I'm looking on page 2,
Page
after the first tab, the unaudited actuals combined unrestricted and restricted, 65,504,954. It's about halfway down the page.
Yeah, I'm still not seeing it. I don't know where the first tab is.
It's page 2 that says unrestricted and restricted expenditures by object at the top on the label.
I don't know. I guess I'll figure it out.
Okay.
Trustee Solis?
Just some clarification. Maybe I'm looking at the numbers wrong. Page 1, Section B, unaudited actuals to 2001 to 2002 budget. It shows certified salary increase by 1.6 million and classified salary increase by 3.4 million. In the same period, the employees' benefits went up by 7 million. Can you explain that?
Which page are you looking at
Page 1, Section B.
of the book?
Yeah.
Can you give me those numbers again? I'm sorry.
Okay, it's saying that the certified salary increase by 1.6 million and classified salary increase by 3.4 million. In the same period, the employees' benefits went up 7 million. Can you explain that?
I'll have to look into that as far as the benefits, but
Okay, you can get back to me later.
yeah, I can get back to you.
Okay, one more question. On one of the graphs, as well as one of the tables, it was showing that books and supplies, and it appears that there was a surplus at the end of June 2001 of 31 million. Is that correct?
That's the difference between what we estimated back in June versus what was actually spent, again, because of the COVID dollars that were put on the budget, but then were not spent. That is correct, the correct difference. Yes.
So there was a surplus of 31.
It's not a surplus, it's just a difference between the estimate and the actual, but those dollars will roll into next year.
So the dollars were actually there if they're carrying over, correct?
Yeah, so whatever we didn't spend will roll on the restricted side, will roll into next year.
Okay. It's more of a thought than a question. I'm just wondering, since we apparently had a $31 million surplus in the textbooks, why Garza started the year with the children not having the textbooks. Just a thought going through my mind. Thank you.
And that account is not just books, it's also supplies. So when we received our COVID dollars, they were put into budgets, some in salaries, some in, a lot of it in supplies, are also in other operating expenditures. And as we roll forward with the plans that we're talking about tonight and the LCFF plans, all those plans will start to show where those funds are being spent.
Thank you.
Acting Superintendent Davis, do you want to address the comment related to the start of the school year without books? I know that I've received a couple complaints, and I know there's a response and a reason for that that isn't necessarily budgetary.
Right. There is two different reasons created that situation for us that we are working and continue to work to remedy. One is we had an incredible lack of books returned that we had to start the year in recruitment to get books back that had been checked out all school year. It was the right thing to do to check them out. We anticipated more would be turned in. We did purchase, assuming that not all would return, and we underpurchased. And when we started to see them not returning, our Director of Library Services got in front of getting additional orders in, and we faced the same issue others did for delay in freight coming in. So we worked with moving them between campus to campus as soon as we would find out that there were books needed on one campus to another. They did the drives from one location to the other to manage that, and then as materials came in, they backfilled those. So we don't anticipate having this problem regularly, but we certainly know that we would be safer to overestimate what we need to purchase in the future. We were trying to be fiscally responsible and not end up with too much inventory, and we didn't estimate as well as we could have. If there is anyone currently reaching out to you that is without materials, please forward them to us so we make sure that that's been remedied. My understanding is the materials have been received, but if I am wrong, we will address that.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have a follow-up to Trustee Solis's point with respect to the books and supplies. If I heard you correctly, you mentioned that part of the difference, such a high difference in our actuals to our unaudited actuals, was COVID funds. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So does our budget identify that those funds, the additional funds that we've received both from the state and federal government related to COVID? Because in theory, I presume it overestimates our revenue and how much money we're actually going to have as we continue to operate. Those funds are going to expire. Does that get reflected appropriately anywhere in our books?
Yeah, the COVID funds are rolling over at the unaudited actuals. If you look at the budget side of the book that we have, it'll reflect in the federal funds the additional revenues coming through from last year.
But they don't get itemized anywhere to identify the funding source and the expiration of those funds.
Yeah, we are subject to the state's SACS codes, and so it's just categorized as federal revenues. It's
Okay.
really not a lot of detail. We can
Okay.
provide that detail, and we've given some information to the board. But yeah, it's not broken out, fund by fund.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, what are the wishes of the board on the unaudited actuals?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. I have a motion by Trustee Solis. Is there a second? I have a second by Trustee Cervantes. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. We move on to our information items. Item number 1, receive information regarding elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund.
The lights on. Okay. Good evening, board members and Acting Superintendent Davis. I'm here to give you just a little information about our next round of federal funding, ESSER 3, creatively named because it's the third round, and how they'll impact our district. The ESSER funds are part of the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARP. As with all federal monies, they require some sort of an expenditure plan, and in advance of that plan, we are required to engage in what they call meaningful consultation with our stakeholders. So that's the process that Superintendent Davis was mentioning earlier with our community meetings ongoing and surveys that are going out and are talking with various stakeholder groups, including the students and parents and staff. The funds are apportioned to school districts to address the impact of COVID-19, and each district's allocation is based on our Title I funding formulas from the year 2021. So we have a short presentation similar to what we're doing at our town hall or our community meetings, and we'll just take you through that real quickly if that's okay. We are in the process of gathering information from all of our community members, so as always, we would appreciate any thoughts or comments you might have as well. So ESSER stands for Elementary Secondary School Emergency Relief, and it exists to address the bullet points up there that were generated by COVID-19. So we're looking at academic, social, emotional, mental health, and opportunity grants, or what sometimes you'll hear as learning loss or unfinished learning. We want all of our plans to align so that we make sure that our work is following a logical course and pattern, and that we're not duplicating work in other places that we've already allocated it for. So the first plan we look at is our Local Control Accountability Plan, approved by this board in July of 2021, and approved by our Fresno County Superintendent of Schools in August of 2021, just recently. That's a 3-year overarching plan, and so as we go about our business writing this additional plan, we will, of course, consult our goals and actions in that plan, and to some extent making sure they're all aligned. And then there was the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant Plan that you got to see this spring, and that was a state fund. We wrote an expenditure plan for that as well, and it came to you in the spring of 2021 and is currently in place, in action, and we're starting to work that plan right now, even as we're writing another plan. So the characteristics of this particular plan, 20% of it is required to go to unfinished learning. It's a minimum amount. You can put more towards it if that's what our stakeholder feedback and our data tells us. We can certainly, we have that flexibility. Any academic interventions that we employ, we would have to be evidence-based, and that has a specific definition in federal funding circles. And then the remaining funds can be used in any manner consistent with the ARP Act, and you can see those bulleted there. Anything to do with COVID-19, educational technology, behavioral or mental supports, after school and extended day, summer school and facilities. Some of this work, as we returned to school in August and we knew these fundings were coming down the pike, we knew that we needed to start moving quickly because as you've heard earlier this evening, some of these positions needed to be in place as soon as possible, and we're in the process of doing that, anticipating this funding coming. The services are needed now. It is district-provided support, and it does not impact school site budgets. It is a district expense. You can see the bullet points up there that we've initiated so far. The LVN positions, the RN, the addition of an interpreter-translator for our Punjabi community, the intervention specialists at middle school that we are adjusting from the SRO contracts, and then, of course, our bus drivers. This is a sample of the polling that we're doing with our community engagement right now, and as we talk with them, we're doing live Zoom polls with them. The same or similar questions will go out in our surveys, asking our stakeholders to rank in priority of what they see from their lens. And then we'll break that down, we'll disaggregate it by the demographic data that we're required to consult, and then we will sit down as a team and we will see how that fits into this upcoming expenditure plan. And that's it. You will see this plan come to you in October, so we'll be visiting again soon. And in the interim, we will be working hard to gather all that community engagement and input and put it together in a cohesive plan that'll support our students and staff. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. We'll first allow the 30 seconds to pass, and then I'll open for any comments and questions from the board.
President Correa, while we're waiting for those 30 seconds, I was remiss in not introducing our director, Annette Grigsby. You often see her in this audience. She is the author behind all of our stakeholder input for a lot of years on the LCAP, any of our state and federal programs, all of our Title I compliance, Title II, Title III, Title IV, immigrant, migrant services, English learner services. This is the brain behind it. So I apologize for not introducing her in advance.
Thank you.
30 seconds have passed. No comments by phone.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board? I have a couple. So I know one of the slides, and you mentioned, we receive a special allocation for specific subgroups of students. Mm-hmm. So how are we making sure, and are we even doing this, that those funds are supporting that specific and targeted group? So this identifies additional funds for unduplicated students, so foster, EL, homeless, low income. What are we doing to ensure that those funds support their needs?
A lot of it is the process that we're engaging in right now, where we're actually engaged in dialogue with them as to what's working and what's not and what they feel are needed supports. Then we, of course, look at the data. We look at the data. We track everybody is in our area system, so we know where those subgroups are. And then we can drill down and tie that to budget strings. Yolanda and I have worked very closely this year to find better ways to track the federal money so that we can make sure that it is going to the, so not just that it's going where it's supposed to go, but can we prove it's effective? We want to know where it's going so that we can then measure effectiveness. So, yes.
How are we using our current talent. So our staff who's working with these groups. I know Acting Superintendent Davis mentioned your involvement, but I know we also have great staff that's working with our families who either have a direct connection or they're hearing about the needs. How are we using our district staff to ensure that we are soliciting the appropriate information or that we are incorporating that as we talk to some of our families as far as their needs?
In a lot of different ways. For instance, last night at the first community meeting, we had 3 different translating rooms available on Zoom Live in 3 different English, Punjabi, Arabic, and Spanish. So, and those were our liaisons doing that. They also reach out to the families in advance of the meeting and make sure, and they help us translate the Parent Square messages and all those things to make sure that the parents get the information in a language they can understand. And then they provide follow-up phone calls reminding them, you know, this is happening tonight, it's important you be part of it and to be a part of the process. So they're on the backside helping us build the information to share with our community, and then they're also helping us effectively gather it.
Do you happen to have any information as to the percentage of participation that we're getting from the specific communities or just from any of our stakeholder meetings so far?
I will have it. I don't have it yet because we're still in the process, but
Okay.
my friends in the tech department assure me that we're going to be able to break it down by all those demographic groups.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Chan?
Thank you, Mrs. Crispy. Can I ask you, and you may not have the data, but do we have an idea? I'm just trying to understand how robust our participation has been up to now for Monday's meeting. Do we have an idea about how many people participated?
We had about 21 participants from the community that came to our meeting and voted in interactive live polls. So, and then we record those sessions, and then after we're done with the timelines, when we actually sit down and start to disaggregate it, then I could tell you more accurately. I do know that there were folks in the Punjabi translation room. There was a robust audience in our Arabic translation room as well. So,
And do we have any idea in terms of by grade level, like in terms of just macro between elementary, middle school, and
not
high
in the
school?
live meetings, but in the survey we will.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If there is no others, well, thank you very much. I do look forward to hearing
you.
more about the results of our stakeholder meetings. Thank you. We now move on to our information item number 2, receive information regarding a public hearing and resolution 2122-08 regarding instructional materials for the Williams complaint. And we have Mr. Horstman. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. It's a pleasure to be in front of you this afternoon. I'm presenting on M2, which is the Williams settlement information. If you don't know, that settlement did require many things, including that all of our students have adequate access to textbooks. Principals and departments are compiling information now to verify that each student has the textbook that they need and consumable materials. Destiny, our textbook management system, provides reports grouped by teacher to verify the checkout of core text material. This resolution, though, is required for continuing receipt of instructional material funds from the state of California. The recommendation is that administration recommends this item to be placed on the September 28th, 2021 board agenda to hold a public hearing and adopt resolution 2122 declaring textbook sufficiency. We did have 6 visits from the county for Williams compliance for textbooks with no findings. Happy to answer any questions the board may have. Apologies, I should have introduced myself. So I'm Jason Horstman, the Director of Instructional Technology here in Central Unified.
Thank you. We will allow 30 seconds to pass, and then we will have any board discussion. And thank you for introducing yourself. And I probably don't speak out of turn, we recognize all of you, but we don't always remember your names or your positions, so it's really helpful when you remind us. So thank you, and thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely.
30 seconds have passed, and there are no comments by phone.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? I do have one question. So what would be, we've heard, and I know this, I think this has now been resolved because I haven't received any other complaints, but initially at the beginning of this academic year, we didn't have enough textbooks. So at what point does something like that or complaints by parents get submitted and are part of the uniform complaint?
So in this process, we basically go through and ensure that students have access to all textbooks based off of our system. After that, there are periodic complaint procedure times that we collect that information obviously from parents and try to respond immediately. But at this time, any shortages that we found, we were able to flex from other sites so that we could fill those. And so we believe we're in a compliance at this point.
Great, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Hearing no other comments, that'll conclude this item. Thank you again. We move on to advanced planning. Acting Superintendent?
That item will come back as action, right?
The calendar is attached, so if there are any questions, you can let us know. Thank you very much. Sorry, I realize I usually just make the comment and I turn to look at you on this item. Our next item, additional information and closing comments. Does any board member have any closing comments? Any requests for information? Hearing none. Our next board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, September 28th, 2021. Our closed session begins at 6 p.m. and our public session will begin at 7 p.m. or as soon as we conclude our closed session. It will be held here in person at the Central East High School Performing Arts Center with our continued option for telephone comments. We do not need to adjourn to closed session, so our final item for today is adjournment. What are the wishes of the board? I have a motion by Trustee Chan. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second. Solis? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Have a good night, everyone.